Delivering to you the digital hair of the dog. This is another AnimeNation news podcast with John. My personal anime thoughts of the week and all the interesting, in my opinion, anime news of the week from here at AnimeNation. We start off this week with word that there are not one but two new Tetsuo Atom or Astro Boy productions in development. First, Tezuka Productions is going to be working with Monaco's Shibuya Productions and French animation studio Kariba Animation to produce a 26-episode television series titled Astro Boy Reboot. This is going to be full 26-minute episodes. However, this may actually be a completely new story. Shibuya Productions has confirmed so far that they do have the permission from Tezuka Pro to create an entirely new story, not based on Tezuka's original manga or not based on any of the prior anime. So we don't know yet exactly what this will be, and we don't know exactly what it will look like, but given the first promotional image, this may end up being something a bit unique that looks vaguely reminiscent of anime, but has a distinctly European flavor to it as well. So we don't know exactly when this will premiere, nor where it will be broadcast, but it is something to look forward to. We do know that Tezuka Productions is also working with YTV to produce a Japanese Tetsuo Atom titled Little Astro Boy. This is going to be a series of 5 to 7 minute long episodes for 3 to 5 year old children. It will be probably a weekly television series that's called edutainment. So this is that sort of educational anime that we don't see very, very frequently, but do see it periodically. It does make me wonder with, for example, how many educational Doraemon anime episodes and OVAs there are, why it's taking so long for Astro Boy to get a similar children's educational anime series. But it is at last finally happening. Fans of the current Date Alive franchise will be thrilled to hear that the show is popular enough that it will be getting a feature film. We know now that the Date Alive franchise, which started last year and is airing its second season right now, will get a feature film. However, at this point, the feature has been just freshly announced, and we don't know yet whether the feature will be a recap movie, or if it will be a sequel, or if it will be an alternate retelling. We really don't know anything at all about what the movie will be about. We just know that there will be a feature film. Yokai Watch is also getting its first feature film. On December 20th, the first Yokai Watch movie will open in Japanese theaters. OLM, the studio behind, for example, Berserk, and also the Yokai Watch television series, will be animating the feature film. And the feature film will actually tie in to the upcoming Level 5 game, Yokai Watch 2. So there will be characters and scenarios in the upcoming movie that are connected or also appear in Yokai Watch 2. If you are not familiar with Yokai Watch, it's the latest anime adaptation of a Level 5 video game. The original game for the Nintendo 3DS premiered in 2011. And it's a story about an elementary school boy who discovers a magical watch, which, when injected with little round metals, allows him to summon and see ghosts or spirits. And he finds that spirits and ghosts are all around him, because that's what Japanese culture tends to believe. And they frequently end up being sort of a nuisance to humans. So he goes around and, as much as he can, tries to negotiate with the ghosts and get the ghosts to leave people alone. The show is tremendously successful in Japan. I hear that it's everywhere in Tokyo. I will be finding out myself in a little over a week. I'll discuss that more in a few moments. But Level 5, as you know, has been pretty successful with both video games and anime adaptations. Level 5 also created, among other things, the Inazuma 11 soccer franchise that got hundreds of anime episodes. The Yamada-kun to Ningen no Majo light novel series. Let me check my notes here. Manga series. I apologize. The manga by Miki Yoshikawa will be getting an OAD episode in an upcoming collected volume. The Yamada-kun and Seven Witches manga is a gender-swapping high school comedy manga. It's about a delinquent boy and the school's most popular and beautiful girl who end up stumbling over each other and kissing, and in the process somehow switch bodies. It does sound like a rather conventional story. To a certain degree it is, but it is proven to be pretty popular. The original manga got an original anime promotional video last year, and that promotional video just hit 1 million views on YouTube earlier this week. Actually, technically yesterday, as I record this. So in response to the promotional video reaching 1 million views, Kodansha has now announced that the anime will get its own OAD episode. So, while the, 13th collected volume of the manga will hit Japanese bookstores next month, a future volume of the manga will be released in a limited edition, which includes an original OAD animated by Leading Films, which is the same studio that has animated the 2 promotional YouTube video clips. Gourare is also getting OAD. Gourare, which some of you may know better by its full Japanese name as Kanojo ga Flag, while Orare Tara will be getting an OAD episode on December 2nd. The 11th Flag light novel by Tokatake, will be released on December 2nd in a regular edition and a limited edition that includes an exclusive OVA animated by Hoods Entertainment, the same studio that is currently animating the TV series. The OAD episode will be a Christmas party episode set in the dorm room, and what's especially unique about this episode is that the original author, Tokatake, personally wrote this episode just for the OAD production. So that's kind of neat. Honestly, I don't know exactly how good the TV show is. I watched the first 2 or 3 episodes and thought it was a little better than I expected. But I've gotten wrapped up and absorbed in a variety of other anime TV shows lately, so I haven't made it back to any new episodes of Gourare lately. So I don't know if the show gets better or worse, or if it really deserves its popularity. But obviously it is popular enough to get a spin-off OAD. In domestic news, Sonic the Hedgehog is finally getting a feature film. This, in the vein of the successful Smurfs movies, is actually going to be an American-produced live-action and CG hybrid movie. Sony and Marsa Animation Planet are going to collaborate on the production here, and that's a good thing. Sony has a lot of money and a lot of clout and has a lot of ability to fund and produce and distribute a good feature film. Marsa Animation Planet is the animation studio that produced the FMV CG sequences for a variety of the recent Sonic the Hedgehog video games, including Sonic Chaos, Sonic Generations, Sonic Freeriders, Sonic Lost World. So we know that Marsa Animation Planet is very adept at CG animating Sonic, the Sonic characters, the Sonic world. So combining that with live action should hopefully turn out to be a pretty good film. This will be an American production, however. Even though the CG animation is being produced in Japan, the movie will be produced in America by Original Film. Original Film executive Neil Moritz, the producer of the upcoming 22 Jump Street and the producer behind the Fast and Furious movies, will be producing the film for American theatrical release. Sonic the Hedgehog has consistently proven to be a very, very popular franchise. Sonic merchandise continues to be very popular among AnimeNation patrons, so it's sort of a wonder that it's taken this long for Sonic to get a mainstream feature film. But the fact that it is finally getting one is something that I think people like me, who grew up with Sonic, can look forward to a bit more than, for example, a live-action and CG Smurfs films, even though I have to admit that I did grow up watching Smurfs. I did watch the cartoon quite a bit as a kid. Did not watch the movies, don't really feel any regret there. G-Kids has picked up the American distribution license to Yume Tokoki no Okoku, or Kingdom of Dreams and Madness. This is director Mami Sinaya's 2013 documentary on the history of Studio Ghibli. The film covers the history of the studio, but actually focuses primarily on the relatively recent 2013 production work on Hayao Miyazaki's Kaze Tachinu, Isao Takahata's Kaguya-hime Monogatari, and Toshio Suzuki's production of both of those films. The Japanese film was released in Japanese theaters last year. It was recently released on Japanese Blu-ray and DVD. The Japanese home video release does include optional subtitles, so it makes this a relatively logical acquisition for G-Kids, especially considering the G-Kids currently distributes from Poppy Hill and is the American licensor for Kaguya-hime Monogatari. So, I have not actually watched the film myself yet, but I have acquired a copy of the film. I have acquired the movie on DVD very recently, so I'm actually looking forward to watching the movie myself, if not tonight, then sometime this coming weekend. While I do generally loosely, like most people, know the history of Studio Ghibli, I'm particularly interested in seeing this feature-length documentary that really dives into the detailed history of the studio. Funimation has picked up the American home video and distribution rights to both the Japanese Tokyo Ghoul television series and the American Street Fighter Assassin's Fist home video series. Tokyo Ghoul is a horror, adventure, action anime that's scheduled to premiere on Japanese television next month, so that means we can anticipate seeing it simulcasting on Funimation's website, if not also Crunchyroll. This show looks like a very dark, grim, very violent, gory show. We don't see very many of these type of anime very often, so those of you that like very morose and gritty, grim, gruesome anime will definitely have this to look forward to. Street Fighter Assassin's Fist is the fan film Street Fighter series by Josh Ansei that premiered on YouTube last month. I have watched all 13 episodes of it, which I hope many of you also have. I have to admit that I was quite impressed with it. Street Fighter Assassin's Fist is certainly, especially for being a fan film, better than either of the two Hollywood Street Fighter films. And by standards of a fan film, actually almost doesn't seem like a fan film at all. It comes very, very close to indie Hollywood standards. What's particularly nice about Street Fighter Assassin's Fist is that it's clearly a labor of love produced by skilled Street Fighter filmmaker fans for fans. So it's very, very faithful to the Street Fighter continuity. It rewards diehard Street Fighter fans, and it doesn't try to overstep its boundaries. It doesn't try to go beyond its abilities, so it focuses very, very strictly on young Ken and Ryu and their teachers, Gotetsu, Goken, and there's always one of them I forget. Goki, Goken, Gotetsu. Their teachers and predecessors, without trying to include the entire Street Fighter cast. From the outset, Street Fighter Assassin's Fist was developed as a multi-episode project that could also and would also be combined into a feature-length film and broadcast on television and would possibly get limited theatrical release. Now that Funimation is behind it, the odds of a limited theatrical release are better. Certainly now the odds of a home video special edition are very good. So that's great news for Street Fighter Assassin's Fist, and hopefully great news for Street Fighter fans, because now we're much more likely to see a sequel and World Warrior adaptation, where we start seeing more of these Street Fighter characters come into the film adaptation. Discotech has licensed rescued Violence Jack. As I mentioned, there are a lot of you out there that happen to appreciate violent, gory, dark, and morose anime. This is certainly exactly what you're looking for. Violence Jack had 3 OVAs back in 1986, 1988, and 1990. All 3 of those based on Go Nagai's manga, which has been periodically serialized in different installments, starting in 1973 and going all the way up, most recently, to Shin Violence Jack in 2008. The 3 Violence Jack OVAs, Harem Bomber, Evil Town, and Hell's Wind, were originally released on edited, dubbed DVD by Manga Entertainment in 1996. Then they were released in bilingual uncut VHS the following year, in 1997, by Critical Mass, or Right Stuff Entertainment. So they've never been released on DVD in America before. So now they will finally be released in uncut bilingual DVD early next year, and I can tell you that they are going to be remastered because I personally know the person who's doing the remastering for Discotech. And I can assure you that that particular AV technician is very skilled and competent at what he does, and when he says that the forthcoming American DVD release will be the best looking that Violence Jack has ever looked on commercial home video, I'm certain that will be the case. So, for those of you that are not familiar with the ultra violence that is Violence Jack, or those of you that are familiar with it and look forward to owning a good copy archival edition, look forward to next year in Discotech's domestic DVD release, which should be available from retailers like AnimeNation. Right this week, AnimeNation has some brand new releases. Funimation released the complete first season of Date Alive in a Blu-ray DVD combo available in a standard edition and a limited edition. Funimation also released a DVD combo of the complete Carnival TV series. Sentai Filmworks this past week released the complete Dog and Scissors television series on subtitled DVD, not Blu-ray, at least not yet. They released the Zettai Boy Leviathan, or Leviathan Last Defense television series on your choice of DVD or Blu-ray. And they released the Maoyu television series, or Maoyu Maoyusha television series on your choice of DVD or Blu-ray. Pretty good titles this week. Personally, I'm not a fan of Date Alive, but as I mentioned, it has been successful enough that it's getting a feature film. Granted, it does, if you stick with it, become a little bit more intelligent than you might expect at first, but not a lot. However, if you happen to enjoy sci-fi harem comedies, if you are a fan of shows like Infinite Stratos, then you'll certainly enjoy Date Alive. Carnival is one of these shows that typically skews a bit towards a female audience. It's a Bishonen adventure fantasy along the lines of something like Vice Droids, or I can't ever seem to recall the name of it. I know the manga was released here in America as Dazzle, but I can't recall what the Japanese title was, so forgive me there. But I know that there are male fans of these type of shows, and there are certainly female fans that love these type of Bishonen dark action adventure titles. Dog and Scissors, likewise, did not really appeal to me very much. However, if you happen to be particularly a fan of Tsundere anime, then this is probably one that you'll enjoy. I happen to really like Zettai Boy Leviathan quite a bit, but then again, this one's also a rather bipolar show. If you happen to really enjoy moe anime, if you don't have a problem with simple, cute, girlish shows, then Leviathan was pretty amusing. It had a sort of moderate, cynical self-deprecating sense of humor. It had a neat sort of otherworld fantasy setting and environment, and it did get a little bit of story and character development depth to it. Furthermore, it was a Gonzo production, and typically we know that Gonzo tends to produce decent, if not outstanding, anime. So, if you're curious about Leviathan at all, I would recommend it. But then again, remember, definitely not a show for everyone. Mayo Maoyusha is definitely a show that will appeal to fans of Wolf and Spice. Definitely a similar fantasy, economics, political sort of anime. Similar, sadly, to Wolf and Spice, Mayo Maoyusha does end up sort of losing some steam. It kind of loses focus, and it never really builds to anything substantial. But then again, shows like Mayo Maoyusha and Okami Toko Shinryu don't appear very frequently. So for fans of this type of anime, we take what we can get. And this is one. If you are at all interested, again, this is a title I would certainly recommend. But not a show for everyone. I have not yet, at least, purchased any of these new releases, but I did invest some money that I can hopefully afford, hopefully folks, this past week. I picked up Upote on Blu-ray this past week. I know I'm a little late on that, but I enjoyed Upote enough that I decided that now that I could get it for $35 on Blu-ray, I thought that it was worth $35 to me, so I picked that up. I picked up the Rio Rainbow Gate and Koige Oshigoto volumes from Media Blasters. I actually enjoyed Rio Rainbow Gate much more than I expected to. I think many people that have watched it will agree that it actually has a bit more substance to it than one would anticipate. And by substance, I don't mean intelligence. I mean more cynical, self-conscious, satirical humor. And much more depth of character to it. It's not certainly dramatic character depth, but they are two-dimensional, they are three-dimensional, substantial characters. So there is a little bit more to enjoy from Rio Rainbow Gate than you might anticipate. Likewise, Koige Oshigoto is only 2 episodes, and they are pretty racy for being relatively all-ages anime, but they are quite fun. Furthermore, as we've all been anticipating for years now that Media Blasters is on its last legs, I want to make sure that I get Media Blasters releases while I still can. So I wanted to make sure I picked up these 2. I've tried to make a habit out of picking up all of Text releases. I like trying to support them as much as I can. So I picked up the Lupin III Bye Bye Lady Liberty OVA from them. Sorry, TV special from them, not an OVA technically. TV special from them. And I also picked up the first half of the first collection of the original Mazinger Z television series from Discotek. So, I have not purchased any brand new anime releases in relatively a while, so I'm making up my part. I almost forgot. I also picked up the Kashan original Tatsunoko television series Blu-ray release from Sentai Film Arts. Again, that's a particular release that I anticipate may not be around for very long, so I wanted to make sure that I picked that up while it was available and affordable, so I picked that up as well. I mentioned that I'm not yet personally conscious of how popular Yokai Watch is in Tokyo, but I will be soon. I will actually be leaving for Tokyo Saturday after next. So I should be around next week to record a new AnimeNation podcast. After that, I will be leaving for 2 weeks for Tokyo. Hopefully, if my limited technical prowess sustains me, I will be live blogging from Tokyo, so you'll be able to keep up with what I'm doing every day. I've been to Tokyo a number of times, so I'm familiar with many of the otaku locations. However, I wanted to encourage those of you out there that are watching, that are familiar, if you have any recommendations for particular otaku hotspots in Tokyo in particular, if you have any recommendations for out-of-the-way anime shops, please send them my way via email. I am very, very familiar with Nakano Broadway. I'm very familiar with Akihabara. I know where the Mandarake store in Shibuya is. However, I'm not as familiar with some of the off-the-beaten-path anime stores. For example, this trip will probably be my first time hunting down the Gojiraya vintage anime goods store. So if you happen to know of any other unusual off-the-beaten-path anime shops like Gojiraya, for example, send me an email. Let me know their names, let me know their websites, let me know how to find them. Because I'm definitely going to be looking for sort of unusual and lesser known anime shops during my 2 weeks out there during this coming trip. In anime, I've been trying to keep up as best I can. I'm a little bit far behind on Happiness Charged Pretty Cure. As I mentioned, I'm a little far behind on Kanojo ga Flag ga Araratara, but I'm pretty caught up, pretty up to date with most of the other shows I'm watching. I think it was last night or the night before I happened to watch So It or Not episode 10, and that's the one that stuck in my mind most out of the recent anime I've watched. So It or Not has largely been a sort of slice of life, lighthearted drama. There's not been a great deal of heavy substance to the show. It is a prequel to Soul Eater, so we know that none of the major characters are going to disappear. But I was a bit surprised by episode 10, because episode 10 suddenly introduced a tremendous escalation in the action and the scale and scope of the show, much more on par with the first Soul Eater television series. So it was such a dramatic shift in tone that even though it had been prefaced by the earlier 9 episodes, I was really struck by where did this come from? How did the show suddenly become so much more intense? Even with forewarning. It was such a dramatic shift in tone that it really struck me. I think it's going to remain to be seen in the immediately forthcoming episodes whether or not it really gels well, whether it really makes sense. As I mentioned, it has been prefaced, it has been foreshadowed by the earlier episodes, so I can't say that it's completely left field. It just somewhat feels a bit left field. Actually, now that I'm talking about left field and talking about sort of coming out of nowhere, I also have to mention that the recent episodes of Hunter x Hunter are also really, really feeling that way as well. The recent plot development in Hunter x Hunter episodes 130, 131, 132, 133, that sort of area, it really distinctly feels as though Togashi is sort of making up the story as he goes along lately. We're really getting a whole lot of plot developments that are really massive, that don't entirely feel organic with each other. So I'm really sort of disappointed a bit lately with Hunter x Hunter, but the very fact that it's introducing so many sort of cataclysmic plot developments lately in and of itself makes this show still compelling and interesting to watch, because it's so unpredictable. That's what I've been watching lately, that's what I've been thinking about lately. I'm always eager to hear what you've been interested in. As I mentioned before, partially my fault, but I haven't been receiving a lot of Ask John email questions lately. So if you've got email for Ask John, please send that my way. And I'll look forward to talking to you again next week. Hopefully for the last podcast before I make it to Tokyo. And then I'll hopefully be keeping up to date with you via Twitter or Instagram or Facebook through the AnimeNation page or the AnimeNation blog page or forum or whatever means I happen to decide to use while I spend my time in Tokyo. So, until next week, thanks a lot for listening. Bye-bye.